City of Salem, City Council Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, met in the Council Chamber on May 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the matters of the fiscal year 26 operating budget and capital improvement plans for our public safety departments, the Harbor Master, the Fire Department, and the Police Department. Notice of this meeting was posted on May 8th, 2025 at 2:39 p.m. In attendance from the A&F Committee, we have Councillor Davis and Councillor Stott. And from the Committee of the Whole, we have Councillors Jerslow, Councillor Cohen, Councillor Masillo, and Councillor Prosnewski. Also in attendance tonight, we have Bill McHugh, our Harbor Master, our Fire Chief Dion, our Police Chief Miller, Anna Friedman, our Finance Director, Mayor Pangallo, and Chief of Staff, Lisa Peterson. And welcome everyone to our second Administration and Finance Committee budget hearing. The meetings will run through mid-June. The agendas are posted on the city calendar, which include a link to the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget, almost 700 pages of it, and other financial information, including the budget in brief, which I always find really helpful. It's an overview of budget priorities, timelines, a breakdown of revenue sources, and where your money goes. And these budget hearings are a great opportunity to learn about what each of our city departments do and their vision for their department moving forward. And if anyone from the public has any questions in regard to the budget hearings, please email me at amerkel@salem.com. And lastly, I want to thank again Anna Friedman and our finance director and the city's finance team for all their hard work in the proposed budget and their fiscally responsible leadership for Salem. And tonight we are starting with the Harbor Master, Bill McHugh, and we can refer to section 14, the budget summary on page 415. And after we vote on the budget summary, then we will move on to the capital improvement plan. And yep. And hold on one moment. We have Councillor Watson-Felt joining us. Okay. All right. Thank you. And also joining us remotely is Councillor Watson-Felt, also a member of the Administration and Finance Committee. And welcome, Bill McHugh. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Bill McHugh, Harbor Master for the city. This fiscal year 26 budget is relatively the same. No major changes. We approach the part-time pay by man hours. And so the way I figure that is basically weekends, watches, in the different positions that I think we'll need. The weather plays a big factor in how early we start. And we know we run until at least November 1st. Not that there aren't people working year-round, but, you know, for the major supplement of part-time personnel. Last year, we had an extremely busy season with serious calls for service. And, you know, we're seeing an uptick in activity. We've already started manning the watch bill with more personnel than we have in past springs. We are going to have a weather event coming up this week, so we'll have a few more people on, but I think my estimates have been pretty true over the last score of years. So in that regard, I think we're in good shape. We are, you know, trying to predict and you'll see in the performance measures, ship movement, and that's been tricky because we have had some delays with the start of the marshalling yard over at the Deepwater berth. So really the vessel or vessels have been the sea installer and any port support vessels for her. But we do give, for public safety reasons, we do give escorts to each and every one of those ships that come in. So that you'll see in the performance measures. I anticipated that this year was going to be a bigger year than it was because I figured they would have started construction. And obviously that is delayed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the councilors? Yeah, Councilor Rosillo?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a couple questions on the first page. Just if you can explain what it means. The increase in water excursions capacity with new offerings.
Yeah, so, and one of them is combined, but we are going to have launch service on the Salem side. A bunch of years ago, the marina that's at 10 White Street, back when it was run by Brewers, they collapsed Salem Water Taxi, which used to do launch service to any vessel, as well as the ones that were within their rental moorings, and they'd also give harbor rides out of Congress Street. That's going to start up again, and also Tiki Hut boats have another vessel, so they'll be running two, and that will be out of Blaney Street. So there are a couple. We are working on some other things, but I don't think they'll make it for this year.
And then one more, just more. The enhanced transient boater options. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we've seen during peak weekends and when the weather is cooperating, a need to take some of the emergency moorings that we're not using, especially the ones towards the head of the harbor down by the dinghy dock, and rent those. And we've done that. We do have a fee for that that's listed in the list of fees. So we're marketing that a little bit more because we have a few more on hand. And that's so that when people come into the harbor, if really safe harbor is the only game in town, when they say they're full, we can offer them a mooring. They pay the fee and they can use the dinghy dock down at Central Wharf. So we're trying to market that a little bit more online and get that out there. And it is part of our electronic harbor management system. So somebody can do it from the smartphone and they can make a payment with a credit card and it goes right in. And it gives them the geographic chart view of where their rental mooring is.
Thank you. And then lastly, on your performance measures, there's a couple that have gone down from the actual in 2024 to the estimated in 2025, the mooring recordings, the moorings cataloged, and the slip fees collected.
Yep. So when we issue a permit, it's a Chapter 91 10A permit. And the marina, Safe Harbor, has roughly 263 rental moorings that they rent for the season. And they didn't fill all their rental moorings last year. I do not issue a permit to them when they don't fill it. And there's a reason for that. We get into a situation where if I issue the permit to them, that becomes their lease as opposed to whoever rented it. And there are times when I'm going to have to take moorings back from them. In a mooring field, back when that agreement was made to have rental moorings, it was 1980 or 81. It was with the Army Corps of Engineers, and it was between Thompson and Mentuck, which was running Barney Gat Transportation. And the average size boat was a little over 20 feet. Now the average size boat's closer to 40 feet. So you can fit less boats in the same area, but for revenues, they'd like to fit more. And what that does, that displaces the recreational mariners that don't want to pay to play. They just want to get their own mooring and find their way out there. So there's a reason why you see the fluctuation in cataloged and issued permits.
Thank you. That's interesting. Yes. Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, Councilor Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chair. Not being a member of the committee, I just want to thank Bill for all the hard work he's done on this new Salem Willows Pier. He did many years of getting it together, all the construction he oversaw, And also the new ferry building, he's been working really hard on that too. Thank you for all your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor.
Yes, it looks great down there. Yeah, all of it. Any other questions? Councilor Poznanski?
Not being a member of the committee through you, Chair Merkel. Bill, the berth that we have at where Crowley is right now, do we, is that off limits now? Is that in such poor shape that large vessels can? Are we going to be accepting any commercial vessels there at all this year?
If you're referring to passenger vessels, no, we will not. It is not, I wouldn't call it a suitable berth to land a cruise ship. As far as when we're doing construction, and again, we're hoping we're going to be starting construction this summer, but we do have in place a wharfing rights agreement that was negotiated not last winter, the winter before. So when they're up and running, we will start bringing in passenger vessels again, but it's not suitable at this point.
Okay. The moorings, I know that there's a waiting list now to have a mooring. Do we know what the wait time is?
Depends on the size of the boat in the area. So we've done a pretty decent job in certain areas of kind of fleshing out the people that weren't using their moorings, getting them turned over to people that have been on the list. It's basically 1 to 3 years until you get, and it could be, if it's a 13-foot whaler, it could be the same year. It depends on the size of the boat and the configuration, whether it's a sailboat with a draft restriction, depth of water becomes an issue. But what we have found is like areas over on the Beverly side, like off of Jubilee, that's much longer because they'll only give launch service between Monument Bar and Lobster Rocks. They don't even go as far as the bridge. So we're trying to fit a lot in a small area, and we split that with Beverly. So depends on where you are. Salem Yacht Club, usually pretty quick, within a year, depending unless it's a really large boat, and that becomes problematic.
Last question is, I'm glad to see that we have a water taxi service back. Who's running that, and where do they run out of?
So it's going to be by Mid-Harbor. Mid-Harbor was bought out by two gentlemen, Ned Foster and Burt Reynolds. That was Brendan's old boats that used to see. So they bought last fall, they bought a Hinckley launch off of the Corinthian Yacht Club. And they designated that as Salem's boat. So they're going to operate to start out of Congress Street, just like water taxi. We did an RFP. They got the award. They're going to pay a fee to use a section of dock and the dock house, just like water taxi used to. And they'll go ahead and they're going to operate there, and they're going to try to go to Area M, which is off Palmer Cove, in certain areas of E this year. And if it, depending on how manpower goes, they're talking about getting another boat and then doing the whole harbor.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? No? Let me just, Councilor Watson-Felt. So Councilor Watson-Felt, how do I unmute her? Her hand is raised. To allow her to speak. No. Councilor Watson-Felt, we're just having trouble unmuting you. Would you try raising your hand again? Maybe it will pull up an option. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? The interim? Okay, we'll just ask IT for some assistance here. Sorry, everyone. Thank you all for bearing with us. We're getting there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that, Chair. I appreciate your patience and everyone's patience in the room. My question for Bill, thank you for all your work and all that you do. I know that it's a lot. I'm noticing here, looking over the performance measures, all of the information around the search and rescue calls and the mutual aid requests, responses. And I'm just curious if you can speak to two things. The number of other calls has dramatically increased, or it had done in the last year. I'm curious what those other calls are generally for. And if you could speak to the cost of these calls. So all of this additional, these performance measures that you show here, how do they show up in your expense line?
So as far as the other calls could be anything from someone reporting an anomaly that turns out to be nothing and not worthy of making the logbook or an incident report. But as far as mutual aid, search and rescue, any type of significant call, it's just part of our regular budget. It's part of the mission for the department. So it doesn't necessarily have a different line item. I mean, we're using the personnel that we already have on watch mostly, and we're using the fuel that we'd be normally using in the response craft. Does that answer your question?
It does, thanks. I'm just looking over at the expenditure side and I'm seeing some, educational training, contracted services, telephone, hauling floats and boats, and the gasoline, obviously you noted. So I was just looking to see, the cost of tows and all of that additional aid and how that gets assessed at the end of every year. No additional question beyond that. I just thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, the cost of tows, because that's come up before. We do not try to compete with commercial towing assistance. If commercial towing is readily available and it's safe to turn it over to a commercial tower, we will do that every time. There are times when we do have to engage in a tow. It may be because commercial towing's all the way up in Newburyport, not available, or weather conditions, or some other reason. So we do absorb that in the regular budget. hauling floats and boats would be used for hardware for the city municipal floats, as well as if we had a boat that we had to remove from the water for whatever reason, whether it would be derelict or for an investigation.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for the Harbor Master? No? Okay, Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I would like to make a motion to recommend approval for the Harbor Master budget personnel line item of $395,121, expenditure line item of $60,299 for a department total of $455,420.
Second.
Thank you. Councillor Stott moves to recommend approval of the Harbor Master personnel budget in the amount of $395,121. The expenditures budget in the amount of $60,299 for a department total for the Harbor Master of $455,420, seconded by Councillor Davis. And all in favor? Oh, roll call. That's right. It's a roll call. Thank you. Yes. So Councillor Davis,
Yes.
Councillor Stott,
Yes.
Councillor Watson-Felt,
Yes.
Councillor?
Yes.
Okay, so that is 3 yeses plus my own. All in favor, the matter carries. And thank you. Thank you, Bill, for everything your department does. And now we're going to move on to the capital improvements. And that is in the red tab, section 7, page 229. And I look forward to hearing about the multi-mission vessel.
So, sorry.
A couple of the counselors W. Mason ran out of the same colored tab. So a couple of the counselors, it might not be a red tab, but it is the big tab number 7 that says capital improvement plans, just in case anyone's looking for a red tab and you don't.
So the last boat we built with in this regard was it was a 2020 FEMA award through the Port Security Grant, and that's the safe boat walk around cabin boat that we operate currently, one of our heavy weather boats. We saw a need for a little bit smaller boat with the same type of configuration up forward. It'll have a drop bow, which we've steadily incorporated into all our boats so that we can get on the islands without the use of a pier or a landing area. It'll be outfitted exactly the same way. We did secure a grant. We got the award about last fall, I believe we got the announcement, around September of October. FEMA will be picking up 75% of the cost for that, and the 25% match will come out of the Harbor Master revolving account, which is derived from winter boat storage on Winter Island. So we're excited. We contracted with Safe Boat International again. This is going to be an interceptor type hull, which means it will not have a full cabin. It will have shelter, but it'll be a little bit more of a three and a half season boat, or it'll be a winter boat if need be. But it allows you to work the sides of the boat a little bit more freely. You don't have the constraints of the cabin walls, but it still has all the features. So we're hoping that the boat will be completed within the next year. I expect it to be in service next season.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the council on the capital improvement plans? Councillor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I just had a quick question on the refit of the 300,000. Was that what was just recently in front of us in council? And then it looks like, so we are getting the insurance claim to cover that?
Yes, so the insurance was paid, the full amount. We will be able to refit the boat for that amount. We just got RFPs back Dion's Yacht Yard on Glendale Street responded to the RFP, and they did get the bid. So we'll be signing a contract with them. The boat will be transferred, and then right now I'm in the process of procuring 2 new engines for it. So we will end up with basically a completely outfitted boat. The hull is still very solid. So we'll have all new electronics, all new wiring. It'll be basically a new boat mechanically.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? No? Okay, so as a reminder, it's June 11th is when we will be voting on all the funding sources that require a council vote and accepting the overall 5-year capital plan. So, and thank you. Again, thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Appreciate you being here tonight and all the updates. Next, we have the Fire Department, Chief Dion. This is Section 12, and the budget summary is on page 387. And welcome, Chief Dion.
Thank you. Good
Appreciate you
evening,
being here.
councilors. Thank you for having me. Let me sit up here. I have a little bit more than the harbor master. My apologies. Talk fast. Yeah. Okay. So this year, before I get into my narrative, our budget expenses were pretty much the same this year. We did our best to keep them there. A lot of items were shuffled around and so forth, but the personnel expenditures, due to the new contracts, have really shown the biggest impact on our budget. And we worked really hard on that agreement, the mayor's office and the team that put that together. And I'm proud of what we accomplished, and that'll be seen in the numbers when we discuss those later. I'll begin with some basic data, recent changes, the basic state of the department information, long-term planning, capital improvements, and finally some key areas of the budget, including some of the challenges we presently face. In addition to the cost of the fire department operations, we run emergency management, fire dispatch. They're all within our budget. So we have 89 firefighters, 5 dispatchers, a civilian mechanic, and a civilian office manager. We also spend a lot of time and effort overseeing the private ambulance company, Atlantic Cataldo Ambulance. So that's the day in the life of the Salem firefighter, the fire chief in particular. A little bit about what happened in the city last year, 2024. It was a busy year for the department, but statistically, it's right on target. We average anywhere in the vicinity of 8,000 runs we've averaged 8,000 runs in the last 3 years. The 2 years prior were COVID impacted, so those numbers can't be relied on. And the data source that we're using now is more authentic than anything before the COVID years. So these years are more respective of what we're actually seeing. So 8,000 is a good number. Last year we did 8,223 runs. A good bulk of those runs, 4,728 were medicals. And I think it's one of the more important missions we have right now in the department. We're always first on scene, not including the police. No fault of Atlantic Cataldo. We're in the 4 corners of the city. We get there quickly. We have the best technology now. We're out the door, as I've mentioned, the last 4 years. We're out the door 3 to 4 minutes faster than when I took over, thanks to technology, and that really makes a difference. We also have changed the model that the Atlantic Cataldo teams are using to run the EMS in the city. We use fly cars with ALS units, ALS providers, meaning paramedics in the fly cars. With a paramedic in a car, they can get where they need to go, and then if they're not needed, we call them off. And if they're put to use, then we would put them on an ambulance. In the old formulas, we'd have them on an ambulance, and then once they put a patient in there, we didn't have a paramedic team in Salem. So now we have 2 fly cars, a supervisor car, and 2 BLS units, and that's a model that's working expertly. That was something we came up with working in conjunction with Marblehead and Swampscott and the Atlantic Cataldo team, and we simply regionalized the effort. I really don't have any complaints about Atlantic Cataldo, and I mention that because we're working on a new contract with them. And there's not too many areas that I'm looking to change, other than just a few things regarding how we're monitoring where their vehicles are and a little bit of technology. And I'm working with the solicitor's office, and I'm looking to recommend that we pass that and sign it over. We're fortunate to have a good provider, and then not every community is in this situation. And there's a lot of towns that are struggling with EMS providers. Salem is not one of them right now. We also, outside of the medical calls, we responded to 1,682 alarm calls. Alarm crew calls are malicious pulls, malfunctioning systems, unintentional activations, burnt food, smells, odors, smoke, and so forth. Those are quite common, and we do many of those. Service calls, we saw over 700. Those include motor vehicle accidents, public assist, and anything and everything you can think of. For example, today down the Bates School, we had a child trapped in a swing set. And the engine company arrived, and they ended up calling for the ladder company, and they used the Hearst Jaws of Life tools to cut the child out of the swing set. I had no idea that was the type of stuff we go to. So anything and everything. Under 20 incidents, we classified them as fires last year, not including the brush fires. We had 3 two-alarm fires. I think it was fire-wise, we didn't have any of that oh my bang, big huge fire, but we had some definite challenging incidents. I give us a good response time. It goes such a far away in the fire service. When you have people say, "Oh, you don't have a lot of big fires in Salem," I say, "Great." That's due to good fire prevention, 4 manned fire stations with good equipment, and response times under 4 minutes. So yeah, we're getting a lot of fires, but we're in the door. When the smoke and fire is getting up the back stairs, it's out. We're there so fast. The bedroom fire, the door's closed, it's out. Everybody spends the night back in that apartment building. So yeah, we don't have a lot of big fires. It's because we're spending the money not to have them. And we're equipping and we're training. Last year, we had what we call 9 working fires. A working fire is an incident where we do get quite involved in the structure fire, and those are just below the 2-alarm fires, and that's a little off. Usually we average 14 to 16 of those, but you never know. Next year could be worse or better. I like to think we've saved millions of dollars of property from our simple little fire attacks. If you consider one burned out house, what a house costs, it's not an overestimation to say we've saved millions and millions of dollars of property, and we do it every single year, and we do it well. 0 deaths in Salem, knocking on wood, but that's something we're proud of every year. Very few injuries in Massachusetts. There were 51 deaths from fire, and that's a very high number for Massachusetts. So I think, we're reaping the rewards of everything we're trying to do around here. Now I'll speak about the brush fires. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody that supported the fire department last year during an incredibly challenging time. It couldn't have come at a worse time since it was haunted happenings the entire month of October and end of September and all through October. We were in the woods 31 straight days here in Salem. Of those days, we relied on mutual aid to come into Salem 17 days, and on other days we had to provide it out of Salem on 14 occasions, all within the months of September and October. That's unprecedented. We could not have handled what we had without the mobilization plan in the state task force teams. We had them in Salem on 4 different days where they were in the woods, where we got up to 40 firefighters from other communities that came in and worked and helped us extinguish or at the very least contain the fires. On 2 days, we had the air wing in from the National Guard. Just recently, the fire marshal has re-signed the contracts and expanded the availability of the air wing to the region and to the state. So that's good news. Hopefully they never get called, but they proved themselves to be invaluable. The acreage burned in Salem was record-setting extensive acreage. It was mostly up off of Highland Ave behind Camp Lion, Camp Fire Girls, and Walmart. Most of the land that was burned was owned by the Lions Club of Lynn. They own hundreds of acres back there that venture all the way towards Peabody Line and the Spring Pond. The other section that was burned was what we call the Salem Woods Highland Park. That was about a third of that. I think we just barely burned a tiny bit of the fire load here in Salem. I've worked with the DCR rangers. They've taken a survey of our city and they've identified a few areas of concern, but nothing that stands out. The Salem Woods still has hundreds and hundreds of acres still to burn. And everything that burned last year, I would say we're hopefully out of the woods with that for a couple more years. So, having the year we had, it was challenging and expensive. We did use a lot of overtime. We're creeping towards the end of our fiscal year now, and I think we're almost going to make it across the finish line with manning issues. Hopefully, we're not in front of you in the next couple of weeks, looking to finish out the year. But if we are, that would be the reason. We manned a heck out of the trucks that time, and it was expensive. So I'll move on to fire prevention. We completed the fire prevention officers. We have a team of 3 officers, our marshal and 2 inspectors. They did 4,100 inspections for the entire year, and that's an enormous amount of work. Those range from smoke detectors for the sale of a home, building occupancy permits, on and on and on. There's just too many to mention. So they do a lot of work. That's up significantly, and I think it's going to continue the trend that way since there's so many projects going on in Salem. Just take a ride around. The in-service inspections, the fire companies completed 1,153 of those. An in-service inspection is what it says. A company goes out, they visit a business or a property with 4 or more units, and it serves 2 purposes. It's a very basic inspection, but it does allow them to get in these buildings and interact with the property owners, address potential hazards and needs, and then also familiarize themselves with the property. So in-service inspections are a valuable part of the fire service, and you see the trucks out often doing them, and they did almost, I think, 121 more than last year. So that's a pretty good step up, considering the amount of runs they do all day and the training, and then they still got to get their inspections done. Our fire dispatch, we have 5 full-time employees and 3 per diem employees. We had a vacancy for almost 5 months. We've had a heck of a time filling that vacancy with somebody that's qualified, and we just fortunately filled the job. They answered 11,288 phone calls for service last year. If you run the numbers, it's a lot. They're definitely a busy department. They're averaging at least 1,000 a month almost, and they also have ring down lines with Atlantic Ambulance and the police, and that doesn't count the amount of calls. That's not included in there. So dispatch is a busy place, and they handle a lot up there, and they fall under our budget, even though they're in a different union than the firefighters. Very briefly, I relocated fire prevention almost a year and a half ago, and it's a good thing because the Station 6 building is just at the end of its lifespan down there. We put some efforts in did some remodeling on the exterior, fencing to secure all our emergency managed equipment. It's all in one place. We've created emergency management cache. We've even gone so far as to put a new sign on the building. As Councilor Jersel may have noticed, it says emergency management motor pool. We fixed all the windows aesthetically, and then we continue to landscape and maintain the property. Unfortunately, there was a weather event that took out a portion of the roof, and there was some flooding until we realized that had happened. We did reseal the building, but there's just nothing inside that's really usable other than the mechanics area. It's weatherproof, and we're storing anything and everything from all the city departments, and that's pretty much its only use right now. It's no longer suitable to be used as an office area or anything like that. The fire prevention at headquarters has just been amazing. We now have enough manpower, so every time someone rings the doorbell at our building, because we have a secure building now, the door is answered. In the past, it was myself and my office manager, Ashley, and if I was out and she was out, that was that. So now with an administrative deputy and 3 inspectors upstairs, the doors get answered no matter what during business hours, and the phones get answered. So that's a great benefit to bringing everybody into one building. Plus there's somebody to have lunch with. So it's kind of cool. The mechanic, he continues to operate out of Station 6. It's a 2-bay building, but it goes way back. It's a huge area, and it's still not big enough. We need to keep them down there, and that building is valuable to us. Since I'll speak just a little bit of the capital improvements that went on. 4 years ago, when I took over as chief, my goal was to be very aggressive with the capital improvements. The building was in rough shape. The buildings, all 5 fire stations, and I include Station 6 in that. The entire fleet of apparatus was failing. The department vehicles were all more than 15 years old. The firefighting equipment and tools, we had a lot of issues, but thanks to some good capital support from the council and the mayor in the city, and some good efforts on everybody's part, we've made a lot of improvements. You can see it when you go by the stations. We don't have a single roof that's leaking. We don't have any issues right now with overhead doors. All the apparatus floors have been refinished. We have many projects that have been completed, too many to speak of here, but that's thanks to the support and the efforts that are underway. Presently, we're repairing windows and doors at the building in North Salem Station 2. We're hoping, if we have a success with our capital budget, we'll be putting in NFPA compliant lockers in all our stations. When I speak of compliant lockers, the gear, the firefighting gear, has PFAS in the gear. PFAS is, as you know, a toxic chemical, and these gases gas off the gear. And also everything that the firefighters are exposed to in fires wearing that gear, it accumulates on it. We wash it as much as we can, but no matter what the life of that gear, it off gases. So we put this gear in a locker and we slam the locker shut and come back in a week. And when you open that door, you're getting a blast of chemicals, and it's not safe. And the gear doesn't ventilate properly and dissipate the chemicals that may or may not be on the equipment in the gear. So we're putting in either open side lockers, which we're doing in all the 3 stations, outside stations, similar to seeing a hockey dressing room. They're all wide open. Headquarters with a different environment down there, we're putting in all mesh open side lockers with doors so they can be secured, since the public's in headquarters more often. So we're looking to solve that problem. Well, not solve it, but improve on it and make it a little safer for the firefighters to work there. We've been doing a sustainability study. For the last 2.5 years, I've been working with Neil Duffy, and we've done a lot of work. We've changed all the lighting in all the stations. We've done weatherization on the existing windows that don't need to be replaced. We've blown in insulation. We've really done a ton of work in those directions. And the last part of the sustainability project is the heating and air conditioning retrofit in the buildings. We have 3 boilers in all 3 outside stations, 1 in each building. And they're just done. The radiators are completely decrepit. The piping at Station 5 won't even return water. So the steam boiler runs dry constantly. It's obviously just needs to be done. So we have, hopefully in this capital budget, which will be part of what you'll be discussing tonight, an effort to replace everything and put in high efficient heat pump systems throughout the buildings. And we'll be able to get rid of 23 window air conditioners. Can you imagine the savings in that alone by taking the window air conditioners out and just having air conditioning and central air in the entire building? So that's part of the sustainability. There'll be savings there. No more oil or gas, be better for the environment, and hopefully more cost effective. And it's certainly a big project, and it's one of the ones I've been working very hard on, and I'm hopeful that we're going to get that off the ground. We finished 2 major projects at headquarters that took a lot longer. They should have, but I won't get into that. We put in a new ADA bathroom on the first floor. It's fully compatible now at headquarters for any visitor that come into Salem Fire. It's the only thing we don't have, and nor are we required to have, is an electronic push button door. But we have a ramp into the building. We have an ADA bathroom in the building. It's fully accessible. We have a new female locker room upstairs. We took right above that bathroom that was renovated. We took quarter of an office, installed a shower, lockers, new doors. We have a female locker room ready to go. And lastly, we're still working on our police fire radio project. That's a $4.5 million expenditure that I've been working on for 6 years before making me chief. I think we're going to see some completion timelines somewhere in the summer. Myself and Chief Miller have put a deadline on the vendors because we like this thing put to bed, hopefully before haunted happenings. With that will be some hidden savings for both departments. Right now we have repeaters all over the city with the added cost of maintaining that equipment. It's all totally spent, antiquated, cannot be relied on. In addition to that, we rely on Verizon copper phone lines to communicate with these repeater stations. And I believe the Salem Fire alone has 15 of those copper phone lines. So we pay a lot of money to Verizon for copper phone lines, and that'll all go away. These are some of the savings we're anticipating. And the new system will be fully self-sufficient, and it comes with a 3-year maintenance contract. So hopefully once we put it online, pay our final payment, we can kiss some of these expenses goodbye forever. It's all microwaves and fiber optics. All new consoles in the police station, radio consoles, they'll be operating on mouse pads and so forth. Dispatch equipment, transmitters, everything brand new, and it'll take us, through the next 50 years. Since the equipment we're using, we can barely repair it. So we're happy to have that project wrapping up. We have one more apparatus ready to be delivered. I'll be flying down to Florida in the Tampa Bay region with my design team, and we can't do this final spec here with our dealer. We have to go down to the factory and we do our final design, and they're going to deliver the truck by the end of October. So that's the new engine 4, and we'll be able to get rid of a 26-year-old reserve piece, and that'll be a happy day because that truck is very costly and expensive to operate. In addition, we have our 2 UTV squads. I may have already spoken to the council about this. One of them was equipped for just EMS. That one's going to be equipped now for firefighting as well with a 75-gallon tank. I think it's a better purpose, better served when we're driving around the downtown, providing care and so forth. If there's a quick fire, we get 75 gallons of water to make a quick stop. And the fires will be detected quicker with all the people. And so hopefully we don't see any big burns or anything that would get out of control because we can get there quickly with these little vehicles. In addition to that, we benefited greatly during the brush fire season due to the mobilization plan. We had task force come in with communities from all over Massachusetts that volunteered to be more active in the mutual aid agreement and provide services such as a brush fire team or a command vehicle and so forth. So through our capital plan, we've requested a brush truck for the community, for the department. Last year, we had an expenditure in the capital budget for $80,000 to replace our pickup truck and outfit it for a light rescue. We've since evolved that plan into create a truck that would be a light rescue / brush truck. It'll have 100 gallons of water and everything we'll need, including lay flat hose, connections, everything to operate at the woods for an extended amount of time without having to rely on another community to come in and save us. In addition, we will join those mutual aid agreements and provide our fair share of the return should another community need it. And included in that will be our 2 UTVs. I have just put out some feelers for pricing on trailers. So our UTVs will be stored on trailers and they will be part of a regional task force as it should be. And we'll go out and repay the services that were given to us. So that's the brush truck that we're requesting in the budget. The manning issue, when I took over, we had 11 openings and then it expanded to almost 17 due to delays related to COVID and so forth. Happy to report as of last Friday, we are again fully manned. I have 3 more candidates, 3 more recruits graduating from the academy Friday, and 1 more is going to the academy. So when I say fully manned, I guess I can actually say they're all on the trucks but 1. That's huge. We can get our ladder in service, that ladder 1 in service more often. We rely less on overtime, and a lot more can happen when you have the men and women to staff the trucks. Almost done. I apologize. Future planning. Some of the big things we're looking at, as I have spoken to our finance director, ladder 2 is 13 and a half years old. I put in for next year's budget, if not next year, the year after, a $2 million request to go ahead and order a new ladder truck. It takes 3 years to build it. So if we were to build it next year, the truck would be 14 years old and it would be 17 years old by the time we get a replacement. If we wait one more year, we're pushing the limits at about 18 year, but I think we could possibly do that. So those are things coming down at us, and those are things that we'll have to consider as a community and decide if that's what we want to do. So for grants, we wrote a grant for the Assistance to Firefighter grants for SCBA's. Our SCBA bottles, due to the NFPA regulations, they can only be used for 10 years and then hydrostatically retested and used for 2.5 more years. So we're at the end of that 2.5 year addition. So I wrote a grant. Hopefully we're going to see the money we need to replace that. It's a matching grant. We have to match it with 10%. It's a $68,000 grant request. Emergency management, MEMA funded the work we did down Station 6. We fenced it all in to secure our equipment, our light towers, our signboards, and anything that could be stolen. It's all secured in the back of that building. We put in perimeter motion lighting, and there's a camera on all 4 sides of the building, and they're monitored 24/7. So the station's protected, and that was done with a small grant. We also have received a DFS grant, Department of Fire Services, for turnout gear. We spend almost $70,000 a year on turnout gear, and I think we got $21,000 for that. So that was a very beneficial grant. And we also received a private donation last year for $35,000. What $35,000 bought for the fire department was the thermal images we use when we go into buildings. They're these small cameras. Well, the technology we were using was almost 15 years old. NFPA says we can only use them for 10, but we're using them because they still sort of worked, but they were definitely aging out. Well, the new technology is far superior, and thanks to a very generous donation from a businessman, we purchased I think 5 or 6. I lost track. I think there's a picture in the budget of us all standing in front of the table with the cameras on them. Back to the budget. 94% of our budget is personnel related. The other 9% is expenditures. The things that eat up a lot of our expenditures are the truck repairs, $60,000 to $90,000 annually. Station repairs, $35,000 to $50,000. Fire suppression equipment and testing. We have to test our pumps every year. We test our ladders every year. We test our SCBAs every year, and we rely on vendors to do that. Face pieces, those need to be tested. It's expensive to run a fire department and meet the mandates and get it done. I mentioned already the fire turnout gear, $75,000 to $77,000. Heat, electricity, and phones. The phone bill is $22,000 a year. I can't wait to see what that'll be when we get rid of those Verizon lines. And then we just did some work with IT, and they changed all our phone system over and cut our costs on all our cell phones and tablets by half. So that's going to save us, because we did cut a lot from our expenditures to get the budget to where it needed to be. So that was a great effort by Bobby and the IT people, John and Bobby over there. Engine 5, we paid our final payment last year, so that was $88,000. That didn't have to be paid out this year in expenditures. That was fortunate. And as far as overtime costs, we don't have a lot of hiring coming, and we will see less expenses related to sending firefighters to the academy, which is very expensive. With less retirements comes less hiring, which is a double-edged sword. It's good and bad, but it's cheaper when we don't have to continually hire and train and hire and train and send them for medical exams and psych evals and background checks. And when you're doing that, we've hired, including the dispatches, I've hired 47 people in 4 years. So that's a lot of hiring. And then that's out of a pool of probably another 60 people, 70 people that we did all those background checks on, medicals and physical fitness evaluations and psych evals. So it's expensive to hire, and I'm hoping that that's going to show a reduction this year, because we don't have a lot of anticipated openings coming in the next couple of years. And that's it. I think I'll wrap it up there. I said a lot. I hope I covered enough or not too much. I'll answer your questions at the time to the best of my ability.
Wow, thank you. That was incredible. I can't express how grateful grateful we all are for what you and your department does. I've appreciated our conversations we've had about integrating new technologies. They've always been fascinating, and those are big numbers for calls and inspections. And I do want to mention how residents have really expressed how grateful they are to your department with the increased challenges with brush fires. And it was also really interesting to hear about your efforts for sustainability. Really, thank you to you and your teams. I've noticed in the financial numbers and goals, more resources for education incentives and training, which is terrific. Yeah, I'd welcome hearing more about that. Those
Sure.
plans, and also we'll discuss the budget items and then move on to CIP. Thanks.
As part of the agreement that we worked with the mayor's office and with the local union, we increased the education incentives. It's important for our people to continue their education. They're incentivized to study fire science courses, and there's a lot to know. If you want to advance through the ranks, it's beneficial to go ahead and do so, because many of the upper ranks you're not allowed to advance to without these degrees. And the benefit is twofold. It benefits the employee, and it also benefits the department. You get a better quality trained workforce, and I thought it was a good area to incentivize through the contract with, and the mayor's office agreed. So they'll be getting more money to take the classes and more money to have the degrees, and I think we'll see quite a benefit from that.
Yes, agreed. I think that was great. That definitely standed out. So that's terrific.
Thank you.
Yes. Any questions, Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. Through you to Chief Dion, thank you for all that you do. And thank you for that great summary. You covered mostly all of it. I just had two quick comments and one quick question. But I'll start by saying I appreciate how you look at the budget every year and how you report on it. And you're kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say creative budgetary, but you don't look at something as, just spending the money, but, trying to figure out how to get the best solution for something. And I, think back to 5 or 6 years ago when the trucks weren't working in the ladder, and it was kind of scary for a minute.
Rough. Yeah.
It was rough. So I think we are in a much better spot now. It feels in the department. And I think a lot of that is due to your keen leadership over there. So
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for that. My quick comment was on the measures, the performance measures. So you mentioned a lot during your narrative that I don't think are listed here. So it would be helpful to have those. The big one that jumps out at me is the number of inspections, like building inspections that are being done.
Yep.
Is especially if you're, with growth throughout the city, if those are increasing, it would be great to see any trending in that. Similar to like response and call time. I know that's always a number that's brought up, but I don't see it anywhere. But I know that that's something that is of great pride and like a really impressive number.
Yeah,
so I think it would be great to see that. So that was just a quick comment. I also had a question about hydrant flushing, but I'll ask you later. That was my note for myself. The EMT line for personnel was the other one that had the big change. So I'm assuming it has to do with contracts. And I think you mentioned it at the very beginning, something about EMT work, but could you just explain how that changed?
So right now, it's contractually mandated that all the firefighters are EMTs, and when they come to us, it almost without question they are, but occasionally we get one or two that aren't. They have 1 year to complete the EMT training once they finish the academy, so the clock starts ticking. But we run an in-house training with Atlantic Cataldo, and we'll have 3 or 4 of our folks, and then they'll bring in some other people from other departments and so forth. We can accommodate up to 22 people in our classroom for an EMT class. The EMT stipends all went up. They receive much more compensation than they used to, considering it's one of the biggest things they do in the performance of their job. To be EMTs, I actually advocated for the increases in that area as opposed to just flat out salary increases. I wanted to incentivize and reward them, and so there's some of the related is due to the contract settlement.
Thank you. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, thank you for your leadership and especially during this past year. And I appreciate you coming to the neighborhood meeting and explaining everything about the brush fires and what the department did. And it was very helpful. And I appreciate that.
Welcome.
And I am looking forward to that brush truck. I think that will be a huge add looking into the future here.
Yep.
just a note. It's my last year here. I was really hoping you'd have some female hires on your staff.
I can't tell you that I wouldn't have anticipated this question tonight.
I know. That's why I asked it. I knew you were waiting.
All right. So
Yeah.
can I say?
Is there a plan?
Okay. So right now, we have worked the pavement, so to speak. We've been to the schools. We go to the what do they do a day where job fairs? We go to those. We've been to Girl Scout meetings. We've been to ROTC meetings to speak to the men and the women. And believe it or not, the junior ROTC program at the high school has more women than men, almost twofold. And I hit every single one of them. My staff has been reaching out as much as they can, but statistically, it just isn't working still. Right now, I have one female candidate. The list just dropped 2 weeks ago, the new civil service list, and presently she is sitting at approximately 5th place behind four veterans. She doesn't have veteran preference, but she did serve in the military. And I've been told by Kim Emmerling she will be getting veteran preference. So she'll be sitting even with those folks as a veteran. So I don't have any anticipated openings more than a couple coming up in the future. So what I customarily do is if I see something within 18 to 20 months potentially opening, then I start the hiring process and get them through, which takes 3 to 5 months. And then I put them on a reserve list. And then when someone retires, I can notify the academy, reserve a spot, and they go to the academy 2 weeks after they start. We gave them 2 weeks orientation and they go to the academy. So I don't see a lot of, right now I have 5 people on a reserve list and I'm pretty much anticipated through the next 18 months to 2 years of retirements. It doesn't mean I won't go out of my way to put a couple more on there. And if I can get to this woman, I will. But she's the only one that applied from Salem. I looked at the state. We had 482 people pass the exam. That would include the written and take the time to go take the PT, the physical portion. Of the 482, 15 females took the exam. Of those 15, if they wanted to have a job in Salem, which we can't go and hire them because we have to do the Salem residents first using the old system, only 10 of them live within 15 miles and they wouldn't meet the standards. So there's just page after page after page of just, and as I was speaking to Chief Miller this evening, we talk about this at Essex County at our chiefs meeting. We talk about it at the Fire Chiefs of Massachusetts State meeting. We talk about it at the New England Fire Chiefs meetings and the international meetings, which will be in Orlando this year. It comes up every year. And there's a changing fire service in America. And it has taken a lot of steps backwards and gone away from females joining the fire service. And there's a lot of young people that don't want anything to do with the fire service. It's not a problem in a professional, or I shouldn't say professional, career department like Salem. Metro Fire Service people we're not having those recruiting problems, although we don't have an answer for the female problem. So communities like Salem, Lynn, Beverly, Winthrop, all these metro communities, we have civil service. We got 70 candidates that people want to do the job. When you're in the rural communities, we'll take Topsfield, Boxford in this area, or if you just go out in the Route 2 corridor, Route 3 corridor, where they rely on call-all, they're struggling. They're not getting people that want these jobs. They don't have the money in their budgets to pay. And they don't have the equipment. There's been a monopolization of the apparatus that the manufacturers make. And a lot of, almost every manufacturer was bought by one company called the Rev Group, and they've raised the cost of a fire truck by double. My first truck I bought here when I took over as chief was $650,000. I went and got a price to replace with the same company, and they wanted close to $1 million. And how are these communities going to afford that? And how are they going to incentivize employees to volunteer to do a really difficult job, and they're not getting the manning, and women included. So I don't have any answers. It's a gigantic systemic problem, and the females in the fire service, there's just no answer. I'm hoping to get one, and maybe someday down the road some more. We do have a locker room, though. I did that, so yeah.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, we're not going to solve it here tonight, but my suggestion to go back to up the ranks when you're talking about this is to include the women in the conversation and, really have a conversation about how to get women more involved. So,
one initiative that came out of the New England region is they have started a camp for usually they have many explorer camps in the summer for firefighters. This one is just for girls, for young girls between the ages of 16 and 21. And this went out to all the schools in Salem, and I'm hoping that some of them will sign up for it. It's free, it's a week, and it's in southern New Hampshire, and I hear it's a great program. So if you're at home watching and you want to take part of that, but I mean, there's a lot of initiatives. Everybody in the region is doing their best. There's no easy answer.
Thank you. Yeah, that is discouraging. Councillor Cohen?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. Not being a member of the committee, perhaps the compensation for degrees will make for a more diverse, and attract more people. I just got a few comments. I'm looking forward to getting our $4 million worth on the radio equipment. And I know you and Chief Miller have talked a lot to the council about the value of that and how it will enhance the work you're doing. Heat pumps, that's really awesome. Just so you know, they filter allergens, so they will help a little bit with the
carcinogens. Yep.
Yeah, and they're about 330% more efficient than a traditional air conditioner. So that's going to help. Could you speak a little bit, like, I know you have this brush truck coming, but in the meeting that Councilors Marcillo and Harvey set up, you talked a lot about how the department equipment is going to have to evolve a little bit, to handle fires more, brush fires more. Do you anticipate having to get other kinds of equipment that you don't have now?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the capital line, I included, I believe it was 15,000, 15 or possibly 20. We're going to need to outfit this truck with hose, and it's different hose than we use in a fire truck. The hose we use in a fire truck is rubber lined, very durable, very, very rugged. The hose we use in the woods is a single jacket hose. We use it from widths of 2.5 inch down to 1.5 inches, and then down to 1 inch. So we put out a feeder main 500 feet into the woods, spread it in a Y with the 1.5 inches, another 300 or 400 feet, and then connect with 2 more Ys, the lay flat inch, and we can go as far as need be with these hoses and actually extinguish the fire. So purchasing the hose isn't cheap. And all those connectors and fittings, those all have to be purchased. Specialty tools, tools to chop wood, cut trees. We're getting some more saws. And the best tool we found and in our recent adventures in the woods was the leaf blower, the backpack leaf blower. DCR, our forestry rangers, they all operate backpack leaf blowers, and when you get into the woods, you blow the fire back into the burn line, and you can buy yourself a lot of time, and then you can go back after that and create a burn, an area with no leaves up to 6 feet wide. So we'll be buying 4 of those, 2 of them with a grant and 2 more to be part of this purchase here. So that's specialty equipment to handle these situations more on our own and relying us on a regional response. So there is a lot of equipment that'll be coming with that truck.
During the brush fires, you were able to reallocate, resources, firefighters to different areas based on drone? Is that something that you're looking to get?
So I think drones are great. They're phenomenal. Do we need our own? We don't, because They have them. So as part of the money that we got donated, they got money donated as well, and I'll let him speak to how he used his. But we bought thermal images, and they bought drones. And on, I'd say 5 or 6 different times when we were up in the woods, the police were with us with their drones, and it was fantastic. So yeah, the drones are great. And they serve a really good function. Also, if we have a larger structure fire, you can throw a drone up in the air and just get a better feel for what you're dealing with. So yeah, they're useful. I don't think we need to purchase them for both departments. Other people may disagree, but that's the decision that I made.
I have one last thing. With the proliferation of solar and batteries, it's become increasingly more dangerous for your guys getting on the roof and dealing with stuff. I know the state keeps changing the code, and Deputy Chief Shobin reached out to me about, training people on the codes and how to identify how to do the shutoffs and where they are. And so we attempted to train everyone. So very grateful that you did that, because I think it's really creates a lot more safety and knowledge. And when you're at some of these homes, or build, businesses, you probably see code violations, that you didn't know. And I also bring this up because I really got a firsthand view of how it works in the department. We started, as you know, I invited someone in who actually knew something more than me.
Successful program. Thank you.
And we came in one class, and literally within 30 seconds, all the alarms and everyone got up, and I couldn't figure out one alarm for the other. I don't know how this crew, here's this one and that one.
We can get nothing done. It's just constant.
It was
have a meeting or a class.
I don't know. I mean, we're that. 5 minutes into it, and half the class is gone, and they come in for the end. But I just wanted to commend you, because everyone was so professional. There was a lot of really good questions, and hopefully it will make for a safer trip when they go out and they have to deal
Thanks
with
for the assistance. Councilor Cohen put us in touch with an individual who volunteered to train our department. And when you train the Salem Fire Department, it's 4 divisions, so it's 4 classes. And he came in 4 times. And I thank you, Councilor. And the training was expert. We have basic training through the academy and through programs that we institute, but this was far beyond that. Entering the area of a solar panel on a roof is very dangerous, in particular if there's fire involved. Yeah, they generate electricity no matter what. And you think you shut them off, they're never off. So anything about them is incredibly dangerous, and knowing that and recognizing that is incredibly important. We have some tricks up our sleeve to slow down the energy production. We could put tarps over them. There's manufacturers that make a spray foam that sprays on them and turns into a plastic film that can be peeled off in the future, and that'll stop them from generating. But all these provisions are useless if you don't understand the true inherent nature of the danger. So thanks a lot, Councilor Cohen, but yes, very important stuff.
Yes, that's very interesting. Thank you. Any other councilors? Councilor Jersey?
Thank you, Chair, not being a member of the committee. Thank you, Chief, for you and all your firefighters for all you do.
You're welcome.
I just have one question. Have you ever thought of controlled burns? I don't know. They used to do them in Cannon Hills, years ago, in the 70s and 80s. Last year we had a small one down on Winter Island Road that got pretty big, but you guys got it out quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there's a lot of homeless people that actually camp up in Cannon Hills with their fire pits. You ever think of doing controlled burns?
I am not inclined to go that direction on my own, because I have no qualifications whatsoever. DCR, who's our forestry service through the district, the management in the state, they very seldomly do controlled burns. I know that when we were in the woods up near off of Highland Ave, we'd have sections burning, and we'd light backfires and burn them into themselves and expedite the burn so that it doesn't last 3 more days because they weren't going out. If you think back, there was a fire in Lynn Woods that was probably the most brutal days of smoke for Salem, because in the days that Lynn burned, it blew towards Salem, which was Salem Lynn, Revere, Everett, they got clobbered. And what they did is they lit backfires and they burned all their acreage in much, much quicker time. So they had about 46 hours, 48 hours of heavy, heavy burn and smoke, and then the fire was out. They consumed their fuel. There was no way we could consider that in the area of our fire, since all the areas burning extended like fingers into neighborhoods. So we couldn't do that. I liked what they did in Lynn. It was proven to be successful. I don't think we have one place that we could consider that. I know there's homes near Cannon Hills. I don't think so. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the councilors? No? Okay, Councilor Stott?
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend for approval the fire department budget personnel line item of $10,804,711, expenditure line item of $542,440, for a department total of $11,347,151.
Second.
Did I say that right?
Thank you. Councilor Stott moves to recommend approval of the fire department's personnel budget in the amount of $10,804,711. The expenditures budget in the amount of $542,440 for a department budget total of $11,347,151, seconded by Councilor Davis. We'll take a roll call vote. Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Stott.
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt.
Yes. And Chair, just to let you know, this is my last vote. I have to sign off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, and that's a yes from me. So that's 3 plus 1 in favor. The matter carries. And now we will move on to the capital improvement plans, which is tab 7, page 229 for the fire department.
Thank you. I'll be quick. Oh, great. Thank you. Well, I can read that. So I did speak pretty much at length about a lot of the projects ongoing, so I won't spend too much time. I want to touch a few things more on the steam heating system replacement. We do have some incentives from the utilities that will assist with paying those projects. They're not included here in the cost. Are they included? No, not on this sheet. And they do expire this year at the end of 2025. So I'm glad we're considering moving forward with that. The lockers, it pretty much, I explained all of that. And the forestry truck, we had 80,000 from last year. And we're going to incorporate that with the $205,000 request, and we should be able to pull it off and get the truck we need. And that's it. The ladder truck, we have that presently in the FY27. It could possibly go to 28, but I wouldn't recommend moving it any more forward than that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions from the councilors? No? Okay, I think that's it.
All right.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Incredibly thorough update on your department. Appreciate you and your
You're welcome.
teams.
Thanks for listening.
And next up, we have Chief Miller, and the police budget is in section 13. The budget summary is page 401. And welcome, Chief Miller.
Thank you. Good evening, committee members, committee chair, other members of the council. Before I get into my introduction of the police budget, I'd like to start by thanking the entire council for your partnership in public safety. Your support and your leadership, it makes my job easier and allows me and my officers to do a better job. The past calendar year was marked with some successes and some unfulfilled aspirations. Overall crime is pretty flat in Salem. Violent crime is down significantly, but petty crime is up significantly. Calls for service were roughly flat. Many in the department are angry at me for jinxing us by boasting that we hadn't had a shooting in a while. We've had two quite recently, as I'm sure you're all aware. Recruitment has been successful, both from a standpoint of getting close to full staffing and with the goal of hiring more people of color and more women. The department currently boasts 91 officers, including myself. We have 2 in the police academy and 1 on deck, but we also anticipate at least 1 retirement in the coming months. So we need 2 more to reach the city ordinance mandated number of 95. The budget has been adjusted to show 3 recruits in order to account for any additional unexpected departures. And just to give you an idea, personnel are always the lion's share of a police budget. For ours, it's approximately 92.5% of the overall budget. I am very pleased and proud to report that one of my officers, Lieutenant Chris Hansen, is currently attending the FBI National Academy. That's a program run by the FBI, which takes police managers from across the country and across the world and trains them alongside new agents at the FBI Academy in Quantico. It's a program that I went through. It is amongst the most prestigious law enforcement training that one can attend. And Salem hasn't sent anybody in over 10 years. So getting a spot and getting an officer into that spot was something I'm very proud of. We submitted for reaccreditation this year from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. We haven't received the results yet, but I'm very confident in our performance. Accreditation is a voluntary process in which the police department is examined in 346 individual standards. Fewer than a third of the police departments in Massachusetts achieve accreditation. We were first accredited back in 2013, and it's redone every 3 years. I created the position this year of Youth Services Supervisor and staffed it with a particularly outstanding sergeant. She oversees investigations involving children, both in cases where children are victims and where children are accused, as well as supervising the school resource officers, and she's certified as a school resource officer herself. Our body-worn camera program continues to deliver benefits. This is a critical technology that helps both the prosecution of criminals and the integrity of police officers. We expanded our drone program with 12 total pilots on staff. The idea being on any given shift, we want somebody capable of getting one of our drones up in the air. We were able to purchase a Milo simulation machine, which is a tactical decision-making trainer, sort of a simulation machine. Puts an image up on a wall, and officers have to make a variety of decisions based on what they see in split-second time. It adds an element of stress to training, and we were able to pay for that through a burn grant. I think most importantly, we negotiated new contracts with both police officers' unions that I believe recognize the vital job that they do, specifically reward officers who pursue their educations, in return of so-called Quinn benefits. Overall, better educated officers perform better in the field. And the increased benefits will also aid in continuing to recruit talented, dedicated officers. The rather significant increase that appears in the police department's budget is directly attributable to those contractual obligations. They occasioned a mid-year adjustment to last year's budget. But if you compare that adjusted budget from last year to this coming year, that increase drops to about 4.04%. And that increase mainly represents this year's contractual obligations, a 3% pay raise, along with attendant increases to things like overtime. That said, I'd like to direct your attention to some discretionary increases. The most significant is haunted happenings overtime. It's been increased approximately $128,000 to reflect the increase in size and duration of our October tourism boom, now including September and November. But more critically, it reflects my increased fear of danger to public events in Salem. We have in the past used officers from out of town and the state police and other partners, and will continue to do so. But I believe there is no substitute for having Salem police officers in the crowds and on the ground. I also intend to augment officers directing traffic, particularly at that time, with civilian traffic positions. There's a $12,000 item in the budget for that. Finally, we've been funding a part-time outreach worker, a domestic violence coordinator, and that sadly, that grant funding has ended. I feel that this is a vital position. We have a dedicated police officer who handles domestic violence arrests and prosecutions, but the support for victims goes way beyond that. I appealed to the mayor, who had directed that there would be no new positions this year, and he agreed, and that position has been converted to a city-funded position. The cost is approximately $23,000. One more thing, which is I would like to thank our finance director, Anna Friedman, who, despite this year's challenges and spendy department heads, keeps us honest, keeps our lights on, and maintains 1,000 other priorities. With that, I'll take any questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Miller, for all the work you and your department does for us. And I appreciate you touching on the importance of being fully staffed and having the funding to accommodate that. And I'd like to recognize that you have full resources and the way you utilize them in many ways. But one thing I would like to just recognize is your presence out in the community. Especially in the last few months at neighborhood associations, the Know Your Rights meeting that the Point Neighborhood Association had, a SWAG pedestrian safety meeting. I attend a lot of, community meetings and gatherings where people, are looking for information and your presence there. Has meant a lot. I've had many residents tell me that it has really been impactful, and they feel they have your outreach into the community has been meaningful to them. So to them, and I do want to mention that. It's great to hear about the youth services supervisor. And I think the focus on youth is really good to hear as well. But there'd be a lot to mention. So I'm going to move on to the other councilors as well.
Thank you.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel, and thank you, Chief Miller, for your recap this evening. Always a lot going on over in the department. And thank you for the questions that I asked earlier. One of the questions that I asked earlier was around the grants, but I'm like, I knew you answered it last year. So I went back and I watched the answer last year and it made a lot of sense. But one of the things that was commented on during the answer, and this is in regards to the grant around municipal road safety grants for additional selective enforcement. So one of the conversation points that kind of came up was communication around that. So kind of pinging off of Councilor Merkel's comments about being out in the community and your visibility is great. Visibility of those selective enforcements and how we are enforcing our traffic violations and how we are out there after the fact. Like, we don't want to tell people, we're going to be out there on North Street or Liberty Hill this weekend, but after the fact, I think it would be great just to make, because along with Councilor Marcella's points, we just don't hear about it as much anymore. That's kind of the perception that people have, but we can see that there are violations being written and occurring, but the perception is that they're not happening. So how can we change that narrative? And I think using the communication from the department and from yourself would be really helpful. And that was mentioned last year, but I don't think that any of that really got off the ground. I had a couple budget line item questions. The first one was on plate readers. Are these the plate readers that also interact with the parking department plate readers, or are they totally separate?
Totally separate. These are stationary.
Well, that's a bummer. There is an amount for plate readers in your line item expenditure, and then there's also the same exact amount in the CIP funding. I didn't know if that was on purpose or... Okay, we'll pause that one for now. And then I had a question about the crossing guard program. If you can maybe talk about that a little bit, because last year was the first year where they were actual members of your department. I guess I'm not quite sure exactly how they're classified. But I know for one, like there were a couple really key crossings outside of school, like it's not Wilson Street. What's that street by Collins? Jackson Street, where there was no crossing guard at dismissal, and it was very scary for a few months. So I'm wondering how that's working within a department for, coverage or swapping or making sure that there is coverage when needed.
So last year we took over the program from the schools department, and it was felt that we would be better able both to manage, supervise, and train crossing guards. And I think so far it has been a success. We're able to prioritize. So recruiting and hiring, like every other job, is difficult, and that's why there isn't always a crossing guard at certain intersections. But we try to prioritize the intersections that need them the most. And in the case of the Jackson Street guard, I think it was felt that there were other more critical intersections. But you're right, that is too long to wait.
Yeah. Is there communication within the schools around that? Because there was a crossing guard around the corner at a light, which I thought was to not have a crossing guard at a spot in the middle of the street and have one at a light controlled intersection. Seemed like there could be some swapping going on. I will say some of those crossing guards, oh my God, God bless them. Like they take they take a lot of chances every morning to make sure those kids cross the street safely, and I very much appreciate it. Another topic along the school lines, the SRO officers, you mentioned that. Could you just give me a rundown of the number of SRO officers we have and what schools they're at?
Sure. We started, when I started, we had 2, and we've expanded that to 3 police officers and now a sergeant. The sergeant generally isn't stationed in a school the way the police officers are, but supervises and responds to incidents, and liaises directly with the school superintendent. And they move from school to school. It's not, there's no fixed post, although Collins is sort of the highest priority.
So 3 total around the city.
3 total assigned, with regular assignments to the school. Yeah.
Derby's at Collins too, I've heard.
And Derby is also at Collins.
I had one other question that actually I had it circled every year, and I don't think I ever asked the question. It was an expenditure line about social media archiving. What does that mean?
It's funny because I looked at that this morning. We're mandated to archive all of our social media posts and interactions for Freedom of Information requests, and it is a significant expenditure. I wish we didn't have to, but it's kind of a requirement.
Curious, we haven't seen that before. And then I don't know if I already said this in my last question, but now my last question about the animal.
If I can interrupt to come back, it has been present in previous budgets, but it has gotten more expensive. So.
No, it's always been present in your budget. I haven't seen it in anyone else's budget, which I not advocating to add anything to the budget though. Animal care control. So I see that the canine department is increasing. They actually came and visited our Girl Scout troop over the summer, so much appreciated there. And I know that there was always, I think the history of it was the funding of volunteers and fundraising and all that. It looks like there's an increase for the support of that within the department, which I totally support. But I'm curious how much of the funding for the canine program is funded by that 5013 that was funded versus the department?
It's a factor of about 5. The expenses paid for through the charity are dwarf the city expenditures, but there are certain city expenditures that are required, principally around Madden, who's our explosive ordnance dog. There are certain things that the ATF requires us, and those sort of fall to the police department, or fall to the city finances rather than charity. Madden found a gun the other day.
Yes, Anna Friedman?
Thank you so much for noticing that the license plate readers are both in the technology line and also in CIP. We had intended to move that to CIP, and so it is technically in there twice. So that is that 26,000. I'm sure the chief has potentially other uses for it, but that 26,000 that's in the technology line is also in CIP. If the council is interested in making adjustments, it is the same. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So just to confirm, it's a double payment essentially. Is there a preference for it to be removed from CIP or department budget? CIP is probably easier, but.
It was intended to be adjusted out as part of budget savings, and I think we just had a crossed wire that I'm thankful that you just noticed, so that it's not appropriated twice.
I guess the question would it be an annual budget line item that we would expect to see every year? So therefore it should probably belong in department budget, or is it like a one-time project?
We would like more cameras. So I don't want to give that away if I don't have to, but we've kind of put in for the ones that we feel are critical. But the idea is to monitor all the points of ingress and egress to Salem. And so there is room for more.
On reflecting further, I do think adjusting in CIP would be preferred because I think we also have some other, from time to time, there are some unexpected CIP items that come up, so that would free up funding, potentially end of year CIP costs that could arise. That would be helpful.
Thank you. Councilor Mazzillo.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Chief. Couple of questions. Do you want to start with the demographics? Do you have the demographics of your department?
Sure. The overall demographics, I don't have those specific stats. I can speak generally though, and I can speak about the hiring in the last 4 years. The last 4 years, we've been able to hire approximately 35% people of color and approximately 24% women. That's well above both where we were, although we were pretty, I think we were 19% people of color overall before that I around 12% women. So significant improvement there. I think I like to point out to sort of a critical mass that happens when you get enough of a certain demographic where people go back and tell their friends, hey, say the Salem Police Department is a good place to work. It's a good place for people who look like us. And I think we're just about there for some of those demographics. I mentioned aspirations that we haven't fulfilled, and we don't have enough Black police officers. We should have more. So that is something that we concentrate in recruiting, we intend to hire more.
Thank you, and I appreciate that you're working to make the force look like the community, and it's really important.
It's not controversial to say that's an important goal for a police department.
Yep. Couple of questions about some numbers. In your performance measures, the motor vehicle citation violations seem to be going down for 2025. The estimate?
My estimate was we were pretty flat but for 2025.
I mean, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, what it says right here is the actual 2024 was 6,506, and the estimated for 2025 is 5,771.
Yeah, I think that probably failed to take into account the program that Councilor Stott mentioned, the targeted enforcement for which we receive grant money. So that I expect that number to go up. Let me put it that way.
Okay. To that point, do you think that we could get a breakdown for the past 2 years for that grant? The number of violations?
Absolutely. We have to report on the grant, so we have those.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those numbers would be really helpful. And I will second again this year that communication is really important. I think it's probably one of the most common complaints I hear about the police department is the lack of enforcement of motor vehicle violations. I mean, whether it's true or not, it's a common thought and it's a common theme, and I hear it a lot. And probably because people are out in their cars and they see all the violations around them, right? And so if we have grant money that we're using for violations like this, we should be talking about how that grant is being used and what kinds of violations we're focused on. And then just the normal numbers for the year. We should be talking about that.
Well, your point and Councilor Stott's point is well taken. Yeah, I think that we could do a better job of publicizing that. Our motor vehicle enforcement in general, but specifically that those grant reports.
Yeah, and I have to say that I think the department now has become very well known for being transparent about the big issues, right? You guys get ahead of the gossip and put out the information, what exactly happened and how you're following up. And it's really appreciated. I think it makes people feel a lot safer. And there's less room for the stories and blowing things up and letting the stories run away from the actual fact. And I've actually seen it, where people say, hey, something just happened, what's going on? And it starts, it's probably this or that or the other thing. And then somebody will say, well, just hold on. They'll come out with an announcement, and you do, and it's great. So communication is really, really helpful. And so I think the citations for motor vehicle violations is just as important. All right. Next is the crossing guards. The budget seemed to have gone down, and I was curious about that.
We have fewer than we had last year. Fewer personnel.
Because we don't need as many?
No, because we're having a hard time finding them.
Okay, that's fine. Shouldn't the budget reflect what you want, though? Or do you think you just won't be able to hire them?
I certainly want to hire more, but because these are, they don't count as positions the way some of the other positions do. I think we didn't put in aspirational numbers there.
All right, that's fair. And then a question about the 2 items for the overtime for haunted happenings, and maybe Anna, you can help on this if it's the same thing. On page 410, 4th of July, Halloween, both of them showing a 50%, what looks like a 50% increase this year for those 2 items. One from 60 to 90,000, and the other one from 297 to 450, I think. Yeah, 450.
While the chief is pulling that up, there is a difference between there's the overtime associated with the direct Salem police officers, and then there's the community events costs that I'll let the chief explain those. Those are different costs.
When we bring in other police officers, there's associated overtime costs with them. The other departments will charge us overtime. And it's difficult to guess at, because while we know how many officers we want to request, not every department charges us. Some think of it as just they provide mutual aid to us just as we provide mutual aid to them. So it's kind of a difficult number to estimate, but that's what that represents.
Okay. And then the the high-risk homeless task force monthly meetings, that went from 0 to 1,800.
Say again? Yeah, Right. It substance abuse outreach was 2,000 there, and it was paid for out of that bucket.
It was a renaming of the item, and unfortunately, when the system has a new name, it puts it on a different line. And so the substance abuse outreach has been a consistent item in the department's budget the past few years. It was renamed, I think, to more sort of accurately reflect what those efforts look like. And so it's the high-risk homeless task force monthly meetings. And there were some slight savings. I think, Chief, I don't off the top of my head what those savings were, but that's what that reflects.
But the substance abuse outreach, the line item right underneath that goes from 2,000 to 4,000.
You're correct. I'm mixing up my lines looking at this. That's correct. That was the one that was renamed. Chief, I thought it had something to do with recalling a conversation that sort of was related to all those items that were somewhat related.
Yeah, we've been having a high-risk homeless task force, and we've been having meetings at the police station for as long as I've been police chief. I don't see an increase in activity there. I think the substance use outreach is more for more for the costs associated with the community impact unit. But yeah, I don't know where the previous coverage came from.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Circling back to one of those items, I appreciate wanting to use, Salem officers as much as possible during haunted happenings. That's who the community knows, and they know Salem. But I'm recalling it was interesting in our haunted happenings meeting, and correct me if I'm remembering wrong, that you also had resources that some of the state police resources we don't have to pay for, if I'm remembering that correctly. And also you had spoke to kind of trading off services when another neighboring community has a need, and you've had your officers help them and they've helped us. So I just thought that was relevant to the conversation here, if you want to just elaborate on that.
So I have used the state police increasingly to help us with haunted happenings, most significantly and mostly in the area of parking enforcement. But we're going to expand a little bit more this year. We also use them to do some patrol for drunk drivers, which has been a problem on weekend nights around haunted happenings. I mean, it's a problem on lots of weekend nights, but particularly there. And the state police have been very accommodating for the requests we've made. I think it still falls under that limit in terms of actual patrol of Salem. I would rather have Salem police officers doing that, but where we can get where the state police do come at that, they pay their own salaries, they have their own budget. We should be making use of them as much as we can, and we also we utilize them for some other sort of specialized functions, bomb detection, things like that. But you mentioned the circumstance where other municipalities will not charge us, and that's sort of what I was talking about when we will budget for a certain number of officers from out of town, but we're sort of never sure whether they're going to charge us or not. So it becomes difficult to estimate that.
Great, though. I appreciate that. Partnerships.
Typically it's the larger departments that can afford to send us a couple of officers without significantly affecting public safety in their own areas. And of course, we do the same thing, particularly with some of our canine officers and our drone program. And then NEMLEC in general is sort of works that way.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. I like hearing about partnerships. Yes, Councilor Marcillo?
Thank you. You just brought up drunk driving. I don't see any breakdown about drunk driving arrests. Do you do that? I mean, do you have those numbers?
I don't have those numbers offhand, but we certainly can break out the number of OUI arrests.
Would it fit into any of the other categories on this performance? Or is it a separate? I'm just curious because are we seeing increased drunk driving right now? Is it becoming a problem? Do we track that?
It's been up slightly. I think we have not seen significant drunk driving accidents, greater drunk driving accidents. So I think that measure has been pretty flat, but arrests are up slightly.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Merkel, not being a member of the committee. So I agree with Councilor Marcillo that looking like the community matters, especially where it can potentially break down barriers for those in our community who might be, for whatever reason, apprehensive about interacting with the police. You brought up degree compensation, the contract, and I think it's particularly good that it's unlike the past where it was kind of limited to criminal justice degrees, that now it's really just about any degree, which I think is tremendous. I think it will make for, people who want to be on the force and be there longer. And I think it's a really great way that they can enhance their life, not just their work stuff. And I also think that, it's pretty remarkable that for a department our size to have a couple of DV, a couple of social workers is really unique. And having the quality of detectives and CIU that we have is really amazing. I think it's almost like everyone watches a lot of Law and Order and doesn't always understand like how much work it takes for a detective to get to the solution or whatever. So I just want to commend you on all that stuff and thank you and your staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Councilor Jerslow?
Thank you, Chair, not being a member of the committee. Thank you, Chief, for all you do and all your offices. We appreciate everything you do. I just had a question. Your full complement of 95 offices. That's been like since probably the 70s when
1978.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say when Councilor Kwasniewski was on. Do you feel comfortable with that number? The surrounding communities, I hear their minimum manning, some of them are like 12 officers to a shift, where I think Salem is 6 maybe during the day. Do you feel comfortable, or do you think that the city should work towards putting more officers on, not just 95, say 100 or more, that, with all the tourists coming into the city and not just in October, but mostly year round now, we get a huge influx of people in the city, and with the surrounding communities, they don't have the tourists like we do, but they seem to have, more minimum mannings with the offices on the street. So are you comfortable with that 95, or would you like to see, you think your department would work more efficiency with more officers?
Well, there's an easy answer to that question. Would I like more officers? Of course I would. And we could certainly use them. However, I think there are budget realities to it, and where we're at a point in this budget where, if I hire another police officer, it means we're giving up another city worker. So of course, I believe as a department head is supposed to zealously advocate for his department, and I do, but I also need to remain respectful of the overall budget. So it's certainly something that I intend to work towards during my tenure here, but not this year.
Thank you. Councilor Prosnowski.
Just a couple of things, Chief, through you, Madam Chair. The body-worn cameras that we have now, are we looking, I know Patrol has them, but are we looking to expand in that area? And is the cost, I know there's not just the camera itself, but the storage and upkeep. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of where we're going?
Sure. So the costs associated with the program include the cameras themselves, which run about $1,000 per unit. But then there was also, as you mentioned, the storage, and also the licenses for all the companies that provide them, including Axon, the company that we use. There are different types of licenses. The license to simply use it and use their software, but then we need an additional license for each of the clerks who maintain the video footage. We were able to buy most of the equipment using federal and state grants. But this is a significant expense. So we got a state grant, we got a federal grant, and we use city funds for that. But in order to maintain all of those things, and then of course, periodically they break, they need to be replaced. We're coming up on contract renewal time, so significant expense.
What I'm trying to focus on is I know that we have our patrol officers out there that are wearing them, but when we have events in the city, 4th of July, or have Halloween, when a lot of our officers are working out on the street, do all of them have the ability to have those cameras?
So right now we have a camera for every single Salem police officer. I'm not wearing mine tonight, but I didn't think it would be necessary. That being said, there are circumstances where we could use some more. The cameras have a battery life of about 10 or 12 hours, and some of the officers during those large public events wind up working longer than that. So one of the things on my wish list is additional backup cameras, which it's not this year, but someday I hope to get some extras. But right now there's one for everybody, and that they get used at times. For instance, when the detectives don't necessarily wear them at all times because we feel it might chill people's willingness to talk to them in certain circumstances. But where they're doing enforcement activity, where they're executing search warrants, where they're looking for somebody to arrest, then they do wear them.
I think it's made a huge difference as far as the public trust with transparency for police too, because now there's video proof of what happened during an incident. That's huge. Wish they had it back in my days when we had horses and buggies. And talking about Halloween, I know that earlier this year we did appropriate some money for studies for bollards.
Yeah.
I personally believe that that's something that's really going to strengthen our perimeter during high times during October. Has there been any movement on how that is going? Who's going to do the work? When, a timeline or anything?
We're still waiting on the design portion of the project. I think all of these projects move slower than we would like. And that's not going to, There are certain things that I think are big priorities. But obviously design and the aesthetics of this is important in a place like Salem. There are certainly other considerations. I know the council has looked at, times of delivery times on the pedestrian mall, and that's another thing that will have to be considered in the operation of those in the operation of those retractable bollards. But the overall principle that I am thinking of, and my overall priority, we block off a lot of streets, including the pedestrian mall. But I think one of the lessons from the New Year's Day attack, New Year's Eve attack in New Orleans, was a lot of those barriers are sort of illusory, right? Somebody's able to drive around them or crash through them. They provide a sort of a false sense of security. So where we are able to really freeze areas in Salem, we will take steps to do that, either through bollards or mobile vehicle barriers. I'm working on borrowing additional movable barriers for haunted happenings, but also to be a little bit more communicative, to look at a common theme tonight, where if you're a visitor to Salem, we'll say, all right, in this area, this is a frozen zone. You can go about your business without fear of an automobile intruding on the space. This is an area where the street's closed. There may be cars there. And I think that's important, both from the standpoint of sort of empowering people to look after themselves, but also, God forbid, something were to happen. I would hate to believe that people thought they were safe when really we hadn't fortified the area enough.
Any other changes and strategies that you can thought on Halloween?
For this coming Halloween, we will look to block off areas more completely, and that will involve some inconvenience for residents. We'll do everything we can to mitigate that inconvenience. Where driveways or parking spaces are blocked off, we'll seek to find alternative parking spaces for those people. I think, unfortunately, the increased security that I envision due to some of the attacks elsewhere is going to result in just more expense, more police officers, more inconvenience.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? No? Oh, Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you. This is probably a question for the mayor, but just speaking of the bollards, is that project being run by the engineering department? Do they own it? Okay, thank you.
And the answer was yes to that? Yes. Okay, thank you. Just for the record, for the public. Okay, Councilor Stott. Page 401. In tab 13.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I'd make a motion to recommend approval of the police budget personnel line item of $13,510,043 and an expenditure line item of $1,082,574 for a department total of $14,592,617.
Second.
Councilor Stott moves to recommend approval of the police department's personnel budget in the amount of $13,510,043 with an expenditures budget of $1,082,574 for a police department total budget of $14,592,617, seconded by Councilor Davis. And I think we'll, just for consistency, we'll still do a roll call vote. And this was seconded by Councilor Davis. Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Stott.
Yes.
I am also yes. So that is 2 in favor, plus my own vote. The matter carries. Okay, and now we move on to the capital improvement plans for the police department in tab 7, pages 230 and 231. Right. Anything you want to highlight on these, Chief Miller, before we move it to the council?
So I think the thing that was previous topic of conversation was police roof HVAC units. That will include those heat exchangers that Councilor Cohen was talking about earlier with Chief Dion. And I agree. I think it's a good idea, both for the sake of efficiency and comfort. The locker room replacement, the locker room dates back not quite as far as that staffing survey, but to the origin of the building. So I think for the sake of the officers, new lockers and new furniture is important. The mobile high-powered speaker stations, that's a continuation of the PA system that we had applied for last year. A mobile unit or mobile units will allow us for haunted happenings to kind of take the place of the fireworks. One of the issues when in moving from fireworks to a drone show was that there's no auditory element to the concluding performance on Halloween, and this will allow us to station some speakers where we want and invite everybody to end the evening. The parking lot redesign is the parking lot behind the police station includes what I think is kind of an inefficient number of parking spaces, but also I think potentially we could work in a canine training facility. So with those three dogs, I think it warrants it. So I think that will that will facilitate that. General repairs to police headquarters is pretty self-explanatory. And then as is vehicle replacement program. If you'll note, go back to our original budget, our vehicle maintenance costs have actually gone down a little bit. I think that's due to a modernization of our fleet. And then similarly, small ADA compliance is state mandated projects around the station. And then just one more thing I wanted to mention about police headquarters general repairs and upgrades. Those of you who are familiar with the way that the headquarters is laid out, we have a very nice auditorium that we've been able to upgrade in previous years. And I want to make that available to more community groups when they want to meet. I think it's kind of an underutilized resource. But one of the issues is granting somebody access to the auditorium grants them access to the entire police facility. And it's not, some of it is a secure facility. So we're going to install a set of doors that will be able to be locked so that people can come and go freely up the front stairs to the auditorium. And I think it'll be a worthwhile improvement to police headquarters.
I think that's a really interesting idea. It's a great little auditorium there. Yeah, and I have been there for when you've had neighborhood meetings and just in public meetings. But yeah, that you don't want people to have access. So
I keep promising movie night, which we will do this year.
Yeah, but I think that's a great way to try to utilize this space more for the community. Yep. Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Merkel, not being a member of the committee. Really cool that you're doing the HVAC. and being on the roof since you're under sea level and you really can't have that equipment in the basement. But I still have this vision of a microgrid, and I know you're smiling because it's going to happen someday, where you can have a completely self-sufficient, sustainable headquarters, which is really important, for any first respond, whether it's you or the fire department. So hopefully we can work to that.
I share that aspiration. I think one of those solar farms over our parking lot would be the sort of the most efficient way to do that.
Great. Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair Merkel. I had a question about the speaker stations, and I just want to, not quite sure. I was trying to listen to what you said when you commented on the line item, but will they be different than the ones that were implemented last year during the?
Yes, those are fixed, and these would be we could move these for specific events.
And then I just wanted to note the Bollard project is being undertaken by the engineering department. I asked that earlier, and there's a 500,000 line item about that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else about that. It sounds like the project just totally hasn't come into your purview quite yet. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it is a group project, and I think will remain under engineering. Obviously, I hope and I expect to be part of the overall city team in making the decisions, but it's not just policing. Priorities are not just policing. But I think that I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor. That amount of money, that 500,000 represents sort of a placeholder, since we don't have the design complete at this point. So that numbers subject to change. Yeah, I mean, given what I know about the price of, just for instance, those retractable bollards cost about $200,000 each. So that I expect that number will actually be higher.
Yeah, just very curious how that project is going along. Any transparency around that would be great. And then the last comment might be more for Anna about the 26,000 for the plate readers, just how to handle that. I'm assuming during the final vote for the CIP. Okay.
Yes, I think on the June 11th meeting, recommend an amendment to the Fund 2000 order that will be in front of you.
Any other questions from the council? Okay. Great. Well, I want to thank the departments that came tonight. I find our public safety budget hearing always really interesting and makes me really grateful to be in Salem. And thank you. I'll entertain another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you.